Okay, so obviously the focus of what you want to talk about is Hashgraph, but one thing I've kind of always been curious about that I actually don't know about you is how you got started, not just with Hashgraph, but with
Cryptocurrency.
cryptocurrency. I know you've had success in the past with Bitcoin, but how did that all get started exactly? Like, what led you to kind of go in that direction where you started getting involved with these kind of cryptocurrencies and things like that?
Right. Well, for me, I always pay attention to like what the next big thing is. Just like my way of thinking. Oh, like they say that it's my detriment. I always live in the future
Yeah.
rather than the present. So when you see like currently on the market, what are the big things people are pushing? When it's AI, I know there's nanotechnology, 3D printing was pretty big a few years ago, but people don't talk about them anymore. And also virtual reality, again was pretty big thing. But I believe real change comes from grassroots people like you and me. The people who has actual problems that needs to be solved, they are the one who push for the next big thing.
Right.
And the way I got into cryptocurrency, I started dabble with it in 2013. That's when I heard about Bitcoin. At that time, I thought it was a scam. I just dismissed it
Yeah.
totally. And it wasn't until 2015 a friend introduced me. Well, I was living in China at that time, and he introduced me to Bitcoin. That was when I first got exposed to buying and selling and trading
Right.
and transferring in Bitcoin. And just like, if you never used an incandescent light before, imagine, 100 years ago when people first switched from using candles and oil lamps to lights. If you just observe it or learn from other people talking about it but never used it, you never really experience it.
Right.
Unless you use the switch yourself and turn the light on, you realize, oh wow, this is different from anything we used before. Same thing with cryptocurrency. Until you actually used, create your own wallet and receive and send and buy, you would not see the magic of it.
Right.
And that's when I first saw the potential of this decentralized technology, even though it was really slow. Bitcoin, the transaction at that time, it was faster than now. It was 30 minutes per transaction,
Right.
to get the Bitcoin into my wallet. And it was really slow, but I saw the potential of it. But I didn't really seriously got into it until end of 2016, early 2017. And the whole 2017 blockchain bubble, I was fortunate to ride, from Bitcoin, from $1,000 to $20,000 in less than 12 months of time. But of course, I didn't sell at the top.
Right.
I wish I did, like everybody else probably involved in the space,
Right.
wish they did. But I held it for too long, and I didn't sell most of it until summer of 2018. Still, I was able to make some profit of it. Yeah. But that's when I began to get into Hashgraph, because I realized that the reason that the bubble of blockchain bursted was because there was nobody using it. The concept was great, the marketing was great, and there was a lot of hype. But unless actual people, average people, started using it, it's never going to justify the inflated price.
Right.
And the reason people are not using it is it's not secure enough. It's really, really slow, really, really clunky, and it's not practical for people to use. You can't use Bitcoin to buy a cup of coffee because the owner of the coffee shop has to wait for 3 hours to receive his money in Bitcoin. And there are different scalability solutions, the community comes up with, like Lightning Network and whatnot. But so far, you don't see them being implemented. And the reason is just the architecture of blockchain itself is inherently flawed. But it's okay because it's the first generation of the DLT technology. Just like the first generation of the engine, let's say, it's really weak. Let's say it only has 1 horsepower, or like the first generation of the the broadband, or the dial-up. Right, exactly. It's like 14.4K kilobits per second. It's really slow, but it sets us on the right course.
Right.
And I view Hashgraph as just the next evolution in the decentralized blockchain, decentralized ledger technology space, but it's much, much faster. So if you use the engine example, blockchain, you can view it as like a 10,000 horsepower engine. Now you can actually use it to create applications.
Right.
If you build a car chassis around this engine, you can drive it. If you build a boat chassis around this engine, you can sail across oceans. Even like an airplane chassis around it, you can fly, on the in the sky. So right now the potential is unlimited. And that's why I'm so excited about Hashgraph, because it's so new, so early in the game, and anybody who has faith in this technology, who is committed into this technology, pretty much they can ride it with the growth of Hashgraph in the next 1 or 2 decades. Just imagine if you turn back the clock to the early 90s, when you just heard about the internet, you can create the next Amazon, next Google, if you just set your mind to it.
Right.
Because you believe this is the right direction.
Right. And I can kind of see, like, if I were to be able to put myself, in the early 90s and really try to understand the internet, it would be kind of hard to do.
Oh, yeah.
To be able to wrap your head around, what the next 20 years would bring, next 30 years. Who could have imagined, what it would really be like now as far as the internet, So to kind of be able to see something like Hashgraph and have this vision, to see the potential of what you think it could be like, say in 20 years, it's one of those things that, people are intimidated by, I
mean, to be fair, back then nobody knew internet turned out to be exactly the way it turned out to be today.
Right.
Even like the Jeff Bezos, the Jack Ma's, they had this, I believe, they had this general idea of where the world is going, but it's very abstract.
Right.
Because nobody can see the future. The future belongs to God.
Right.
Nobody, human beings, we can only guess what the future is going to hold. But you see the trend, and the trend is, I believe, decentralization is to decentralize the power that's congregated in governments, in these big media conglomerates, international corporations, down to average people like you and I. And it's derives from a basic human need to have their voices heard, to get connected with other people around the world who have similar ideologies, similar experiences, so they can build these virtual or online communities where you don't have to physically be there, but you can communicate virtually with one another. And I think that derives from this basic instinct of human need. But the problem with the internet is there's no trust.
Right.
There's so many scams and scammers, and even big corporations like Facebook, they mine and sell our data to advertisers, and there's no privacy. It's a space of unlimited potentiality, but because of lack of trust, people feel not at ease when they're, whether they're shopping or socializing on the internet.
Now, do you feel like that if Adair Hashgraph were to become something, bigger than it is now, that there would be, a pushback, say from, like you said, like if this were to be something that was, on a large scale, it would kind of stop these advertisers in a way. So do you think there would be kind of like a pushback from that?
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm sure there is. Just like, when internet began to emerge, there's also pushback from traditional, media companies.
Right.
But I think, the cliche says that you can never stop an idea when its time has come.
Right.
You can try to stop it, but the momentum of history is going to just roll you over.
So you think it's going to be more like almost how radio wanted to kind of stop television from coming, but there was really nothing they could do about it. It was coming no matter what.
Exactly. And I think in the future, either the companies or people, either they're going to try to use it and adapt themselves to it, or they'll just become obsolete. Just like, newspaper industry, for example, or publishing industry. They had a perfect chance in the early 90s to seize this technology called internet but they didn't. So right now, nobody really cares about about them, and they become bankrupt. Just think about Kodak. Kodak used to be one of the biggest companies in the world, and they were the one who invented digital photography. They invented the first digital camera, but because they didn't embrace it, they were too content with their previous success, so they didn't really commit themselves. I think commitment is huge.
Yeah.
You got to commit yourself. If you see the future, is one thing, but it's another thing to commit yourself to it. And for big companies like that, it's hard to do that.
Maybe they thought they were so big that they were always going to be big.
Right, and they figure, if there's any competition, we can just crush it.
Right.
But they didn't realize that, the paradigm changes and the speed of change increased so much that they could no longer control the competition like they used to. And when they begin to react to that, to realize that, it was too late. And I believe it's the same thing here. In the beginning, people don't know about Hashgraph, and you try to tell people about it, they will probably laugh at you. Then as more people adopt the technology and use it, and more of these decentralized apps come online, and people use it and realize how great it is compared to the other centralized apps, I think eventually people will catch on, and there's going to be a wave of migration from the centralized platforms like Apple Store or Google Play Store onto decentralized platforms like Hashgraph. So that's my belief at least. But who knows? Like I said, we can only guess at the future. And in my opinion, this is the best chance, for change. In the next 10 to 20 years. You can say, if you bet on AI, for example, or 3D printing, or nanotechnology, but I don't even know how to invest in those areas. You know what I mean? I think those are very specialized. If you're maybe a big corporation, or you can try to implement in that. But right now with Hashgraph, you can get involved in it. Like right now, I'm trying to create this decentralized exchange on Hashgraph. You can actually, work with people who are also enthusiastic in this space, try to create a decentralized app. And once the mainnet comes online, you can just integrate your app onto the main network and invite people to test it and to use it. So
what is, from your experience, and the limited time that Hashgraph has kind of been available to you, what has been your experience with people's kind of reaction to when you start talking about Hashgraph to people? What is typically their reaction to hearing about Hashgraph? Is it kind of optimistic, or how do they usually respond?
Well, I think people can only react optimistically or pessimistically if they know something about it. But because this is a new technology, a new paradigm, people don't know about it. There's no reaction. It's kind of like if you talk to a random guy on the street about I don't know, Greek history or something of the early first century. Nobody really cares about that, and nobody really knows about it because it's so far removed from their everyday life. And the reason for that is natural, because there's no adoption yet. It wasn't same as, I would imagine, same thing, when the Jeff Bezos and the Jack Ma's 20 years ago, when they tried to talk to average people about internet. People had no interest in that. But it takes these visionaries to have an early start and to create apps where people start using it. Then the interest, average people's interest will be picked. Because they start using it, have experience with it. It's kind of like when the first light bulb was invented. If I use it before and I just talk to someone, a friend of mine who never used electric lights, I just said, oh, you got to check this out, man. This thing called electricity, you just turn the switch on, the whole room lights up. Nobody would care, because they're used to using candles and lamps. You got to grab them, to the switch and let them do the thing.
Let them experience it for themselves, right?
Then they have a reaction. Then you share something in common. You can talk about it, and hopefully, if they have as much enthusiasm and as much faith as you do, you can collaborate with them and create something that's going to be wonderful on this platform.
Right, and I think that's so true too so many things.
Yes.
You know, there's so many things when I think back in my life that maybe I've experienced, or I've been to a certain place, or I've tried a certain thing, and then you tell someone else who's never experienced it, and you think that you're explaining something really great, they're going to be excited about it, and then they just don't care, or they maybe don't even believe you.
Yes.
You know, I remember watching a documentary from back in the 80s. It took place in New York City, and they went into a computer store in the 1980s, and they were asking people's opinion. You know, what do you think about computers? You know,
Right.
and I was so surprised to hear that a lot of reactions were actually not optimistic at all about computers.
Right.
They're very pessimistic opinions. Kind of
Yes.
like, oh, come on, like this isn't really gonna become a big thing.
Right.
You know, no idea that it was literally gonna one day take over their lives.
Oh, yes.
And that your life, you know, had to have a computer in it. You know, that we were gonna be walking around with these supercomputers in our pocket.
Yes.
You know, it's people's inability to kind of see it, or their desire to want to see it.
Right.
You know, and that's the same thing with, you know, I'm guilty of that when it comes to Hashgraph because of my limited understanding. So I hear someone talk about Hashgraph, or even before when I would hear someone talk about Bitcoin.
Right.
Even though people were making a lot of money from it, because I wasn't experiencing it, my thought was always just like, come on,
Right.
this is a bunch of BS.
Right.
Even though there were people, including yourself, making money. I mean, to go from $1,000 to $20,000, where else you would do it? You know, if you bought a stock and you invested $1,000 into the stock market and it turned into $20,000.
Right.
That would be a big deal. You would be
Yes.
telling everyone about this. You know, everyone would be patting you in the back about this just tremendous stock that you invested in.
Right.
You know, so
And that's the thing, you know, I think just hit something that's common among almost all people is this lack of independent thinking and herd mentality.
yes,
Like we only are enthusiastic about some stuff if other people are enthusiastic about it. That's how people, you know, big corporations, they do marketing and branding. They create this brand. The brand probably doesn't have the value that we perceive it to be. But because our friends think this is good, this is worth that certain amount of money, we are willing to pay that as well. We never really thought independently to think, well, does this worth that or not? Same thing with investing in stocks. Same thing with cryptocurrencies. And that's why I believe that when it comes to, you know, investing, or when it comes to almost like guessing the future, I guess, the opinion of the majority of the people are wrong most of the time. And it's only a few people, you know, whom they probably being called crazy in the beginning, you know, by the population. You know, they were the ones who were able to see, you know, this is different from they had every experience before, and they're willing to commit their lives to this endeavor. And it's not common. It's not common to see these people. So that's why I believe that the Jeff Bezos and Jack Ma's out there, yes, they are smart people. They're hardworking, but they're probably not that much smarter than you and me.
Right.
They are not that much hardworking than you and I. But what they had was this ability to see something that's a little bit earlier than the majority of the rest people. And that's why they are able to create something when there's less competition. Right now, let's say, you know, if you're Jeff Bezos, you try to create something like Amazon.com in this market space, in this internet space, it'll be very difficult. Because the competition is so huge.
Exactly.
That's why they have to find niches, you know, where nobody has thought about it. You know, for example, maybe like a dog walking business or whatnot. The reason for that is, you know, Amazon is taken already, right, 20 years ago. So you need to really in order to stand out, you really need to work so much harder, so much smarter than the rest of the competition. But because Hashgraph is so early, and that's where the discernment takes place too. Whether you believe this is going to pan out as you think, you know, it will pan out, because you might be wrong. But I personally believe that this is the direction, because the market has validated, and we saw that in the bubble of 2017. So the market is saying that we need this. Just because the current technology is not up to par yet, doesn't mean there's no demand from average people like you and I.
Now this is kind of off topic, but you just brought something up that I'm just kind of curious about. Did you just say that Amazon somehow controls somebody to a dog walking?
No. I'm saying that Amazon is e-commerce, right?
Okay.
dog walking is also e-commerce. I'm saying the reason the person who invented the dog walking service online is because Amazon, the idea is taken.
Okay.
He has to find a niche. He has to find a niche in order to stand out, to succeed.
I thought that you were saying they had their own dog walking service. I was like, really? That's very interesting. Because I know there are online dog walking services. Like I said, I used to be a part of one.
Right.
And I wonder if Hashgraph could be of, help to kind of transform that. Because one of the things I didn't like about, kind of like you've talked about Uber.
Right.
Uber takes, 30%?
Yes,
or something?
at least 25.
Every ride where, this company that I was involved with that was a dog walking company took 40%.
Wow.
Of every walk you did. They took 40, you took 60.
Wow.
And they would actually set it up in a way so that they wanted as little communication as possible between the walker and the dog owner.
Right.
They didn't want us to communicate in any way. In fact, if I were to text them, they would give me a false number that would actually go to them first. And they would see the text message, and if they would approve of the text message, then it would get sent to the owner. This way I couldn't be like, hey, I can walk your dog for you.
Right.
Let's get rid of this company. I'll do it for $10 every. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Every time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that goes back to our ideas that there is a demand from average Joes for these decentralized services.
Right.
Because we're sick and tired of being taken advantage by the dog walking service and Ubers and Lyfts. I mean, of course, they provide value for coming up with this original idea,
right,
and also providing the application, the services, but it's us, who actually have to drive our cars, spend our gas, spend our time to haul people around as a taxi service, and just for that we're only getting 75%. That's why they say the majority of people who drive for Uber, they make less than minimum wage.
Yeah.
When you think about it, this is ridiculous. I mean, some of the people, they're working like 12-hour days, and they could barely feed their family.
When I was driving for Uber and Lyft, I was making less money than when I was driving as a pizza delivery driver.
Okay.
Directly for a pizza place. I was actually making probably double the money, working for a pizza place than I was for Uber, because they don't reimburse you for gas or anything like that.
And no tips, relatively few
Rarely,
tips.
you don't get tipped that much.
Right.
Maybe you might get $1 here or there. Whereas, delivering pizza, you get tipped basically almost every house. It's usually pretty significant. And you're getting gas reimbursements from the restaurant. So it adds up quite a bit as opposed to, Uber.
Yes.
Actually, after I did Uber and Lyft, like you, I kind of would think to myself after I left, like, why are there people doing this full time? And it almost like blows my mind that anyone would be doing Uber and Lyft full time. I think it's because people who get involved with that, not everyone, but I think a lot of people start off with doing it have a limited view of potential ways to make money.
Yes.
So they just hear, I can set my own hours, I drive my own car, but not realizing that, you'd probably be better off just working at Walmart,
right,
or serving fries at McDonald's,
right, right.
It makes more financial sense to do that than to be an Uber or Lyft driver,
right. And I think a lot of people who drive for these companies, it's not their primary job. They're just doing it on the weekends or off work hours, just to make some extra income. But even that, if you do the math, it doesn't worth your while. It's sometimes some of the rides, it probably costs you more money, just to take this ride.
Especially because some of the rides that you take, you don't even know where you're going until you pick that person up. Like you said, you told me that your second ride or your first ride ever was to go to New York City.
Second ride,
from Providence to go to New York City. I know I wouldn't have wanted to do that ride. Get stuck going all the way to New York City. I was very lucky. I was fortunate. I think the furthest I ever had to go was, Cranston, which it's not far at all. We're in Providence, Rhode Island. But to go to New York City, I'm glad that wasn't
that's why after the second ride I said I got to reevaluate my understanding of this ride sharing service. I think it's not really good for
And
me.
they screwed you and gave you a 1-star rating. That's not right, man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like you said, everything happens for a reason. Maybe that's just the universe is telling me, this is not the right job for you.
Exactly. I think that's 100% right. In fact, when I got involved with Uber and Lyft, and I really got to the point where I didn't want to do it, but I kept doing it because I a limited view at the time. I thought I needed to do it for money. I actually kept running into situations where all of a sudden my GPS stopped working.
Right.
So I became very nervous about going out for Uber and Lyft because I was nervous that my GPS would stop working again and be stuck in this awkward situation where I'm like, oh, sorry, I don't know where I am right now. My GPS is not functioning.
Right.
So I once that happened, I was like, okay, my time is done.
Right.
And then I went to dog walking, which I had my own issues with that too.
Yeah.
That didn't work out for me.
We should save that for another video.
Yeah.
Your dog walking experience.
That would be a great idea.
Yeah. Well, how do we get to dog walking from talking about Hashgraph? Yeah. So any other questions you have about a Hashgraph? Like my I was gonna ask you a question. Like, just I consider you like someone who's new into this space, this decentralized DLT
I'm
space.
brand new to. I'm totally novice level, beginner, little to no understanding.
Right. Now, what is your like enthusiastic level about this? Like, when you hear about this, do you think, well, this is going to be the next big thing. This is going to change our world, just like internet did 20 years ago? Or is this something that you think is so far away, removed from your life, you don't really want to pay attention to?
I'd say I'm somewhere in between.
Okay.
I'd say I'm somewhere in between because like I said, you've spoken to me quite a bit about it, and it sounds good. It sounds appealing to me. Just like whenever I see any kind of new ideas, new technologies, it always seems appealing, but at the same time, it's kind of far removed from me. And because I can't see it now as being a part of my life, it kind of stops me from being, enthusiastic about it. For anyone watching who's wondering why I'm on a Hashgraph YouTube channel, it's because I'm helping my friend Jim out here.
Yes.
But I'm perfect for this really because you're someone who knows a lot about it, is very enthusiastic about it, and I'm someone who really knows nothing. Like I said before, I never got involved with Bitcoin, even though there were people around me making money from it. It's just there's something about it that almost I'd say if anything it's almost intimidating to me.
Yes.
The idea, just like before I even knew about this stuff, I knew people who were making good money from the stock market, doing day trading and everything like that, and it sounded exciting to me. It sounded good, but when I would personally try to get involved with it, it was kind of intimidating to me. It was like a lot to understand, almost like learning like a foreign language.
Right.
I've been trying to learn a little bit of Chinese, and just to even look at a little bit is overwhelming for me. It almost makes me want to just be like, never mind.
Absolutely. I mean, and that learning curve is what turns off many people in the beginning phase of new technologies. That's why the first people who got involved in internet, they were academics. They were the ones who actually used email in the 80s, in the 90s, who actually surfed on the old Yahoo.com site. It's because they are familiar with this technology. But if you're just someone who uses it for the first time, yes, it can be intimidating.
Right.
Just like anything you tried it for the first time.
Right.
And the reason that I see that mobile internet has made such great contribution and also penetration into society, like even my grandma, even my parents in their 60s and 70s, they're beginning to use their cell phone to surf the net, which was unimaginable, 10 years ago even.
Right.
And the reason for that is because the next generation of entrepreneurs, they made the user interface so friendly. Anybody can use it, even if you have no technical background. It's so easy. Like, the Macquarie app that we talked about, selling stuff online, it's so easy. Just a few clicks, you're able to sell it. And I think Hashgraph will eventually get there, but it takes time. I would say probably 10 years or so. it's the entrepreneurs who can figure out, what user experience can be optimized for these decentralized space, and to make it as easy as possible, so anybody can do it.
Right.
Like the commercial says, it's so easy even a caveman can do it. But it takes time.
Right.
Right.
Well.
But for the people who want to make build businesses in this space, this is the right opportunity, because so early, it gives you the chance to try different kind of things and fail with relatively low cost. You don't have to do a lot of marketing because there's no competition.
Right.
But if you only want to, like, from the user standpoint, then you probably have to wait for 10 years before this technology becomes mature enough and user friendly enough to use it, to take advantage of it. Right.
Interesting. Yeah, like I said, it's something that, it appeals to me a little bit, but at the same time, it's just slightly intimidating.
Yes.
But then again, I get intimidated. I got a new cell phone yesterday, and I was intimidated to put the SIM card in.
I do that sometimes too.
I had to have my wife do it for me. I thought I was gonna break it or something. But that just goes to show, where I'm at, whereas opposed to, you have, in my understanding, you have an IT degree. Is that what it is?
Yeah, I have my undergrad was EE, electrical engineering.
Okay.
But I didn't really use it too much. I only worked for a technology company 2 years after I graduated from undergrad. Then I went back for a business degree. So for me, I think I'm more like a blend between like the business side and technical side. But I would rather, work in the business side.
Right.
Because I like to think in broad strokes instead of in thinking technical terms,
right.
details and whatnot. And I like to communicate with people, verbally, rather than, creating codes and whatnot.
Right.
And writing proposals.
Yeah.
I think for me, my knack is to influence people just by talking,
right,
interacting with them.
Especially because you have more of an extrovert personality.
No, I think you made it easy, because I think I'm more of an introvert than an extrovert. But because you're so like open and so receptive and encouraging, that's why you encouraged me to share, my thoughts with you. Like if I just talk Hashgraph to some random people on the street, if I perceive that he is not interested or he's not friendly, I'll just become a stutter, and I'll become very insecure and whatnot. But because you have this so receptive attitude, you encourage people to share their ideas with you. I think it's half the equation is you. You just make communication so easy.
No, I definitely think you do have much more of an extrovert personality than you think. I mean, because Jim's told me that he's done all kinds of things that I would never do. Like he went camping in 9-degree weather in Yosemite National Park.
No, Yellowstone.
Yeah, Yellowstone. I mean, that's not something that I would.
It was not planned.
Have the courage to do.
Yeah, we went there in the middle of June. We thought it was going to be pretty hot, but we didn't know that it was in the mountain area, in the Rockies, and it fell to below 10 degrees.
Really?
During the night, so we had to sleep in the tent throughout. Me and my 80-year-old daughter. So it wasn't planned. We were planning to be warm and cozy.
Right.
Because who would imagine, like the middle of June? There's still snow. It's still snowing there. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that I don't have. Like, I can't just get in my car and go somewhere, drive to California. I know you've done stuff like that in the past.
You did further than California. You just hop out of the plane and went to Hawaii.
I did do that. Actually, I had 2 days notice for that. That didn't work out for me.
Right. And you said you had a lunch there and came back. Right?
I went there, I had lunch, I took a nap, and I got right back on a plane and went right back. I was not well received in Hawaii.
Right. But you're saying, that's the universe telling you, maybe.
That was the universe telling me. Yeah, I got. This is kind of an off-topic conversation, but that was a.
Hey, share with us. Share with us.
Yeah, basically, what happened was I was very excited about moving to Hawaii, but I wanted to do it, right now. I wanted to, right away. I didn't want to take any time to think. And, within a few days, we had an apartment lined up. And, I got right on a plane. I flew there. The whole point was I was going to go there, kind of establish myself there. And then my wife and son would join me.
Right.
But from the moment I got on the bus just to go to the airport, I felt very uneasy and just didn't feel right about it. And
Right.
as soon as I stepped off the plane in Hilo, Hawaii, on the Big Island, my finger got jammed in the clip for my suitcase, and I started bleeding everywhere.
Wow.
I was having all these like bad experiences, like one after another. The gentleman who rented me a car rented me this like, what people would call a ricer. It was a Honda Civic with racing seats and a very loud muffler with a bumper sticker on the back that said panty dropper.
Oh,
And it was stick shift, and I had to literally ride like this, like shifting, like almost laying down.
Wow.
And it was so loud as I was driving that people would yell at me on the street and they would say, "Slow down!" You thought I'd be going 25 miles an hour. And it was a nightmare. So I decided like right away, I was like, this is not where I'm supposed to be.
Right.
And I got right back on a plane to the mainland.
Wait, did you get a two-way ticket before you went, or you actually bought the return ticket?
No,
right
I bought the return ticket
Right
when
there.
I was in my hostel bed when I got the return ticket.
Oh, okay.
And I went right back. I felt very good about that decision. I know it was meant to work out because, at the time I felt a little bit bad because I was like, well, I just wasted, a few $1,000s.
Right.
But I was able to make that money back within a few weeks, just selling things on eBay.
Right.
So it was one of those things that, and then that actually led to me having an eBay business for a few years.
Yes.
So it was one of those things that I think it just happened for a reason. I know it was meant to be because I didn't feel any loss because of it. It's not like a bad investment, so to speak.
And you also get the chance to tell people you had lunch at in Hawaii.
I had a wonderful cranberry chicken salad.
that's all you did. Just had lunch. I don't think anybody can say that. It'll be hard for people to say that.
I did go for a walk and I did visit the Walmart.
Oh, okay.
I did do that. I went for a little bit of a drive, but that was pretty much it. And I just went right to bed. I woke up in the morning and I was right back at the airport.
Nice. And we probably should, in the next video, talk about your eBay business.
I would love to talk about my eBay business for sure.
Awesome. All right. I think you want to cut this off here?
All right, guys. Well, thank you for watching. I'm Tony. And once again, this is
Jim Gao,
the ambassador here in Providence to Hedera Hashgraph.
Yes.
And we will see you guys anytime you like. We post videos frequently now.
Yes. We'll try to do this every week. At least once a week.
At least once a week.
Yes. If you guys enjoy it, let us know. Okay. Tony and Jim hash out.